Hello and welcome to this short video on how to set custom macros for GJD devices within the Total Control 2 Home Automation Systems by URC. In this video we're going to import the two-way module control into Accelerator, and we will set a couple of custom macros based on event triggers or device triggers, and also creating our own custom macro button. The following devices are compatible with this: the GJD Detect, the IP Anything, and the Clarius IP Illuminator, and we'll be using all three of these devices in this video. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that all of our devices are properly configured and are on the same network as our URC Total Control 2 controller. For this demonstration we're using an MRX10. So as you can see here, I have the three devices login pages open, and I'm going to just go into each one to make sure that the IP settings are correct. So this one here, static IP of 251, and the router address and subnet are correct. What we will do is we will take our TCM2 file, this is the two-way module for Accelerator, and I'm going to copy that to my documents folder for ease of use, so I know where it is. I'll paste that in there, and now I will open Accelerator. So once Accelerator is open, I'm going to import the TCM file, navigating to the folder I just saved it to. And I'm going to click import. So that's now successfully imported into Accelerator. We can close this pop-up, and in order to use the module we need to close Accelerator and reopen it. But we'll reopen it in a moment, as there's one more step that we need to do before we start to create our custom macros. We have here the GJD XML setup.msi file. This will install the XML setup configuration tool for the GJD devices. So if we double click this now, and we can keep all the options at default settings, so we'll just click next, and again, and again. And now the tool is installed. So now that's installed, we can go down to the Start menu, to the GJD folder, and open up the configuration tool. So the first step that we need to take is to discover devices. We can use the shortcut here or go up to Discovery. It'll take about 10 seconds to complete whilst the scroll bar, the progress bar in the bottom right hand corner does its thing. And we have our three devices here: the Detect, the IP Anything, and the Clarius IP Illuminator. So what we'll do is we'll click each one in turn, and we will give the user credentials for each device. So once we've entered in the user credentials for each of the devices, we can then go up to Generate and copy XML. That'll keep that in the clipboard for us later. So now let's open up Accelerator again. And as I said, we're going to be using an MRX10, and we're in the testing room. Ignore this error, as I just haven't set any of the sunset or the weather information here, but we don't need that for the purposes of this video. So we've got our MRX10. The other piece of hardware that we are using is a TKP 7600, so we need to add that by going up to tab number 3 at the top and selecting it from the list. We're using DHCP, although we do have a static IP reservation set up in our router based on the device's MAC address. So this is the Other Devices tab. So what we need to do now is go to the Select Database and select Mine. Go to the Advanced Two-Way Modules, Automation Service, GJD, and then you'll see the Detect, Clarius and IPA models available here. We'll double click that and it adds it here to our project tree. That's all we need to do here for now. We're not using any RS-232 or IR, we haven't got any sensors or relays, so we're going to ignore that step and move on to the network setup. So the first thing we need to do is find and assign our URC devices. And then we need to move on to our non-URC devices. And you will see that we've got the testing room and we've got the GJD device. Now there is no physical device here yet, so what we do is we use a dummy IP address of 0.0.0.1, and that's all we need to do at this stage. We're not using any subsystems, so we can skip that. And now we're going to create our macros. So we'll accelerate this. We'll erase all. So this is our user interface by room. So what we want to do here is we want to create our own submenu. So we will drag that into the main page and we'll name this locks. Inside the locks menu, which is over here, we're going to drag our custom macro. And for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to say that it's a gate lock that works on a relay. So we can call it gate. And we can move on to the next stage. So this is where we use the XML information that we copied to the clipboard earlier. In this system parameter information window, we right click and paste. And if we scroll up to the top and scroll down a little bit, we'll see here that we have the illuminator, we have its IP address, we have its user credentials. And there'll be more in the list for each device that was discovered earlier. So now we need to come on and to make our macros. So we're going to erase all existing macros and we're going to accelerate. So here we are in the macro by room menu, and as you'll see we've got the gate macro that we made a moment ago. So what we need to do is we need to now give that a function as it's red. So we'll highlight it and we'll move over here to the double arrows, which is our two-way module command. So we're going to make this a toggle command, so we will call it gate open close. We'll select our available devices, and as we're using a relay from the IP anything, it's going to be a digital output. And you'll see that we're going to use digital output number 1. So we don't want it to open, we don't want it to close, we want this to be a toggle. And then what we need to do is enter in the device ID. If we go down to the detection, the configuration tool, you'll see that the IPA here is on an address of 192.168.0.250. So that's our device ID. And we'll click OK. So that is the custom macro based on a button on the user interface. But we can also use device events. So we're going to create an automation macro, and we're going to add a new macro. So what we'll call this is PIR-light on, and we'll keep it in the general group. So here is our settings. So the available devices, again, GJD. Now it's going to be the PIR trigger of the detect. That's going to be the event that triggers this macro. So we need the IP address of the detect. Again, open up the configuration tool, and we'll find that the detect is on an address of 251. So in the device ID, 192.168.251. OK. So now you can see that that trigger doesn't yet have a macro assigned to it. So again, we'll highlight it, and we'll go up to the two-way module command, and we'll call it the same. We'll call this Clarius light on. Again, available device. This time, however, if it's not a digital output, it's going to be the LED standard. You do have boost, energy save and strobe modes available, but for this we'll just use the standard. The device ID, again, we need to go down to our configuration tool, and we'll see that the illuminator is at an address of 249. We want the LED to come on, and we want the power to be at 100%. So we'll click OK. Now, what this will do is every time the PIR from the detect detects movement, it will trigger the LED on the Clarius to come on. However, it will stay on. So for the purposes of this demonstration, what we're going to do is we're going to add a 1 second wait, and then we'll make a new command, Clarius off, LED standard, the same IP address, but this time we'll put the state to off and the power to 0. So here we have our trigger, the PIR, we have our macro of turning the Clarius on, we have a 1 second delay, and then we'll turn the Clarius off. So that's all we need to do here for now. So now what we'll do is download this to the controller. We'll just save this here, and we'll use a parallel download to both the controller and the touch panel at the same time, just to help speed things up. This will here say that it will upgrade any hardware that's currently using the original version 1 software to the firmware version 2, as we're using the new version of Accelerator. So now that the program has been successfully downloaded to the MRX10, we just need to wait for the controller to become ready by checking the lights on the front of the unit. And now that we've got 3 steady lights on the front of the unit, the controller is now ready. We also need to wait for the touch panel, and the touch panel is now ready. So as you can see on the touch panel, we have our locks submenu that we created earlier. You can of course change the graphics to suit your needs. And inside there we have our gate macro. So if we click that, that will close the relay. We press it again, and it opens the relay. And now for the detect. So if we trigger some movement on the detect, on and off. And then we have how to use our two-way module for the GJD devices.